Enough time has passed for us to see the new best decks after the latest patch came through, so in this video we're gonna check out HS Replay Premium stats and see how the meta is forming. I'm gonna give you 5 of the best decks so far, and show you their mulligans, win rates, as well as some general tips so you know how to play with and against these top meta decks. So if you're serious about Hearthstone and like what I'm doing, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to get time for some Hearthstone coaching and support me on Metafy groups. I'm happy to announce that my first Hearthstone course is also online right now, ready for purchase, so if you guys want to master the art of trading in Hearthstone, definitely give my Hearthstone Trading Masterclass a go. I'm going over all of the fundamentals about trading, if you should do it, why you should do it, and also how you should be positioning yourself depending on the different matchup you're playing, depending on the archetype you are, as well as the archetype the opponent is. And that is gonna give you a good system to actually understand when and why you should be trading and when you should be going face. Hope that helps. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is actually going to be Pirate Shaman. Still, the stats are a little bit fresh, but I tried to actually go through class to class and see if we have enough critical mass of different close to each other archetypes, so we can still see that it's not just a fluke somebody did well with a certain deck, but actually most people are doing with close to the same archetype, and right now this seems to be the best archetype for Pirate Shaman, with the highest win rate and with a decent sample size too. Not much has changed in this one, honestly. It's still a pretty much standard Pirate Shaman. You still have the weapon and you still slap him big time. There is no Razzler in this one. We have a single copy of Wave of Nostalgia, which you could be using to make your whiteboard into some chunky legendaries, but you can also use this defensively against things like Unkiliacs, and that way you don't even give them a potential to reborn that guy with their hydration stations and whatnot later. The deck has plenty of early game, it has plenty of white stuff, so you either kill them through sheer damage through your pirates, or you evolve them into random legendaries, or something in between. I'm not gonna talk about the deck too much. You also have the weapon game plan, which you could increase the damage with a couple of Turn the Tides, as well as with Adrenaline Fiend, which could be massive, especially if you have Dangerous Cliffside on the board. So yeah, it's really not rocket science, it's a nice aggro deck, but you definitely gotta be smart about how you position yourself against different matchups. Speaking of matchups, let's see if we have some. We have actually plenty. Here we can see Death Knights are not going to be your friend, and I have noticed we have been seeing a lot of Death Knights lately, so keep that in mind. Overall Heal Priest is not going to be too fun for you, and some of the Shaman lists are also clunky, but everything else is pretty good, including things like Control Warriors, so you shouldn't be having too bad time even against those. Mulligan-wise, here's what it looks like going first. Gorgon Zormo is nice, keeping your early game white stuff is also pretty good. The location, if you have a good curve already. Carefree Cookie is usually great. Let me go to the kept win rate, because no way in hell Patches is this low, so yeah, Patches is always MVP. A little bit wonky that you actually don't win when you play Patches on one, like that doesn't make much sense, but it is what it is. Sigil of Skydiving is definitely nice. Some of your good one drops, don't keep too many of them though. Trusty Companion could be great if you already have a 1-drop, and if you already have a 1-drop, Adrenaline Fiend, not the best of things to be doing this early, but it is also a potential play for you, because you might be able to control the board a bit better that way too. As for going second, here it's kind of the same deal, but Ziliax might also be a consideration. Ziliax is the +1/-1 module, obviously. And going second, even Backstage Bouncer becomes a bit more keepable, honestly, because a turn-free couple of 4/5s usually is pretty good for you. For other good Shaman decks, I was actually leaning towards showing you the Rainbow Shaman, because we had a couple of pretty decent sample-sized high win rate decks as well, but as you can see, the Pirate one is just 3.5% over it with still 400 games, so definitely not that bad. But yeah, Rainbow Shaman is doing nice. There's also Elemental Shaman doing well. Surprisingly, this one is not even running Turbulus, which kind of makes sense. Like, you do have a decent chunk of Battlecry idiots here, and you do benefit from the +1, but it is what it is. We can also see Evolve Shaman doing quite well. Big Shaman is still pretty big, and even Highlander Shamans are doing decently well. You can check out my guide and gameplay with that one. It was a pretty fun deck to clap with. There's also this new thing called Insidious Shaman. It's very disgusting, but it's also apparently not that high of a win rate. The play pattern is super disgusting though. Like, if they actually get lucky with their crap, they can literally turn 6, shuffle 15 evocations in their deck, eruptions, whatever, and make him into 5 damage with the help of Sasquatch. So it's a pretty disgusting deck. You can actually see it in action in the Shaman video, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or was it the Warrior? Either way, it's a pretty disgusting deck, but not very high win rate. On the number 2 spot, we also have Death Knight, with Razzle Death Knight doing best so far, at least. This one is leaning towards a little bit more back to Plague stuff, with Helya and a couple of Down with the Ships. That is about all of the Plague stuff you have. It's still a Razzler deck, so that's your main game plan still. It is a double Frosty, so you are able to run Horn of the Winter, which is a pretty nice card. It allows you to tempo out a lot more than you're supposed to, even though in today's day and age, it's borderline standard stuff, really. We have a Brittle Bone Buccaneer. You don't really benefit too much out of this guy, but a lot of the times the opponents are actually going to lose their mind, and they're going to start blasting this thing with all sorts of different things, like wasting their coins, wasting their damage, all of that nonsense. And best you can do with it is get a good Dread Handler in the early turns with Harbinger or with Miracle Salesman, and later on you could actually get yourself a double Reska, which is the real main purpose for this card, but on tempo like turn 2 Buccaneer Horn and Dread Hound is also pretty awesome. Yeah, when the opponent actually tempos this against you, it's usually not that important, but also keep in mind, like, if you're playing this deck, you can also just tempo this guy even if you don't have any death rattles. The opponent is probably gonna spend their entire turn dealing with this. We also have a couple of Corpsicles so you can smash face. We have a single Malted Magma being a fire spell. Natural Talent is actually proven to be quite nice. Buttons obviously draw all that nice stuff. Helya, so it's annoying for the heavy card draw decks, and also it is a nice counter against the Marin's draw 3 for 0, because the Plagues actually negate the 0 stuff, because the Plague eats up the 0 discount that way. Horizon is obvious no-brainer, couple of Mara Manipulators for big damage, couple of Razzlers for big boards, and we have Primus and Reska. Matchup-wise, here's what we have so far, not that much, but at least you're good against Big Spell Mage. For the last 30 days, we can actually see that you're not great against things like Ramp Druid, Secret Hunter, Handbuff Pally, Weapon Rogue, Big Shaman, but it's very close to 50, so wouldn't say not good, just slightly unfavored, more like it. And as for the mulligan, here's what we have. Going first, you want to be curving out, but you also definitely want buttons. Let's go with the Cap Trade again, I don't know. Feels like the stats are a little bit too fresh. Gorgon's Arm was definitely nice, Dread Handler is great, Mining, Harbinger, Helya, Buttons, yeah, basically get the good tempo-y early stuff, leave the spells for later. As for on the coin here, I'm assuming even the location is a bit better, I guess not by much. Horn could be a keep here as well, if you have a good hand like a couple of 2-drops and a 1-drop, definitely keep Horn in that case. Helya and Buttons are still great, you can even coin them out, or you could coin out a Razzler nice and quick, because you are capable of actually loading it up with 2 or 3 spell schools by then. For the other good Death Knight decks, this is the one I showed you. We also have Frost Decay apparently doing nice and good right now, kinda interesting. It's low sample size, but then again most things are. Corpsekull Death Knights are doing pretty good actually. This one is a rainbow variant with blood and whatnot. We can also see Highlander Death Knight being playable again, 53-ish%. And the rest is iterations of those, basically. On the number 3 spot, Painlock is still quite the pain for most opponents. You're still plopping way too much stats way too early, and you are closing games around turn 4 and 5, which is kinda absurd. You still have all of your good early game 1-drop minions that deal damage to you, as well as the Mass Production and the Spirit Bomb for some extra damage cycle removal. Cursed Souvenir is usually pretty good, even though some pros are a little bit skeptical about this card. I mean, playing this thing on tempo, turn 1 Flame into turn 2 Curse, like not many people deal with a 6/5 too quickly, so you will be able to smash a lot of damage like that. And also the plus 3 damage to your face at the start of the turn can also enable you to do some wonky stuff. Elemental is nice to draw. This is the Fearless Flame Juggler variant. Personally, I kind of like the one with lifesteal a bit better, but it kind of makes sense, you know, like you kind of want to be pressing on your strong side, being just deal a ton of damage to yourself and play very big men before you're supposed to, and this is one of those cards, you know, like even turn 2 you play Spirit Bomb, coin Fearless, and that's a freaking 5/5 for 3 mana, so definitely good. Malefic ain't bad, couple of Trolleys for some rush nonsense, couple of Infernals so you can heal back, Popgar as well heals you. Sheriff is proven to be quite strong, couple of Treants on tempo are great. We are running Symphony in this one, it's a little bit iffy, but if you want a little bit of RNG in your life, this might be the way to go. Ziliax is in here, and this is the +1/-1 again, and Imprisoned and Molten in the end, obviously. Matchup-wise, wow, How are we not having any stats for that? Kind of weird. I guess some of the mages, the spell and the elemental mage would be a problem. Big spell mage is great for you, however. Spell token is kind of strong. Flood Pally is gonna wreck you, however. Tourist Pally is also negative. Overheal Priest is gonna be a bitch. Weapon Row can also slap you. And as you see, most shamans are also gonna be strong against you. As for the mulligan, you're trying to curve out with the early game cheap stuff. So you can actually deal damage to yourself, keeping either the party or the flame, or honestly, with a deck like this, you could even keep both just because you're also dealing damage to yourself, so you can get some 4/4s nice and quick. Blood Treant is nice, Elementium Geode is good, Mass is fine. If you have some damage stuff already, Imprisoned Horror is good, Malefic Rook is usually not bad as well. If you have a good one-drop, Kris Souvenir is going to be great. And Molten Giant, I don't know, you gotta have already turn 1 and turn 2 great cards, so keep that in mind. As for on the coin, here's what we have here, and it's kind of the same deal, but here the Giant and the Imprisoned Horror are a lot more keepable if you ask me, and if you're curving into the Infernal, that also could be a keep. Fearless Flame Juggler, as you can see, is not that great, but on the coin, if you already have a 1-drop, Spirit Bomb and the Flame Juggler, I'd say it's not that bad of an idea. With other good Warlock decks, we can also see plenty of different iterations of Pain Warlock. This is the one I showed you, bigger sample size, kind of same win rate. Here's actually the Flame Employee at a Month variant, which I personally kind of like a bit better. It also has Zephyrus in here, but pretty much the same deal. And we can also see Insanity is doing quite fine, even though the sample size for it is quite lower, and the other variants of it are not even that great anymore. Wheel Warlock, barely playable. On the number 4 spot, we have Pirate Demon Hunter still doing some pirate shenanigans. Even with mages lower in popularity, this deck is still quite strong. It dishes out way too much damage way too early, and it kind of closes games as soon as turn 5, so can't go wrong with this one. It's also one of the free decks you're going to be getting if you just started playing Hearthstone, and it's definitely one of the best ones you can pick. I did give you a guide about this deck not too long ago, so you can definitely check that one out if you want to go into detail. I'm just going to say this one is the variant with a couple of hot coals in here, as well as South Sea Captains instead of the Glide. So it's still good. Personally, I kind of like the other one a bit better, but that might just be me. Matchup wise, here's what we have right now. Odin Warrior is not going to be great, and same can be said for a couple of the Death Knights, but everything else is pretty good. For the mulligans, here's what it looks like going first. You definitely want some good 1-drops. Sigil is great on 2. If you're curving out, especially if you have Sigil, Hosen is absolutely insane. Spirit of the Team is fine. Quick Pick is okay. And if you're curving out, even the location could be a consideration, but the rest probably not so much. And for the coin, it's kind of same again. Yeah, it's literally the same, by the way, like, no changes, but location is even more keepable here if you ask me. And Ziliax might also make some sense if you have a Sigil and a turn 1 like Patches, like Ziliax is probably going to be plopping on turn 3 very quickly. Other good Demon Hunters right now, we can see it's basically a bunch of the Pirate Demon Hunters, so don't stray too far from perfection. And lastly, we have Flood Pally still doing quite well, as it usually does after changes, because people are experimenting and Flood Pally is flooding. So here, again, literally nothing new to talk about. It's exactly the same deck we have been seeing for, what, half a year now? Probably more. No new cards, no new anything. Everything is the same, so again, you can just check out a previous guide of mine. Let's see some updated stats about matchups. You're great against mages, you're great against warriors, and for the last 30 days, we can also see some of the Death Knights are going to be a problem. Big Shaman and Overheal Priest would be your hardest matchups. Mulligan-wise, here's what it is going first. Just try to be curving out, don't keep more than 1-1-drop, that's what you have Boogie down for. Gorgon Zormo is great, Haika 1-2 or Mining Casualties or Gold Banner would be good as well. Don't keep too many of those again. Muster for Battle is great on 3, Boogie is good on 4, Balzac is also fine, but make sure you're curving out if you're keeping 4-drops. Depending on the matchup, you might even consider straight up holding on to Showdown and Prismatic Beam. Like, if you're against the Mirror, God knows this is going to be huge. And against most other board-centric matchups, it's also going to help big time. As for on the coin, it's kind of the same deal, but here I'd say Prismatic and Showdown are even better. Ziliax can also be a consideration if you have Showdown in hand. Heck, even the Sea Giant might make sense. It's kind of a wonky deck to be mulliganing for. It's not a one-size-fits-all. I mean, you always want 1-drop, you always want these at the top, but in some cases you might actually ponder on the idea of actually keeping these 3 together, because Showdown for 3 mana makes your Sea Giant -6, and if the board already has some other minions, it's 0 mana Sea Giant for a Showdown, and that can be huge as well. With other good Pally decks, we can also see Hand Buff Pally is doing quite strong. This is Yeah, this is the Flood Pally I showed you. Technically, I could have showed you a hand buff now that I see it, but I think Flood is actually situationed better in this match, in this meta right now, so keep that in mind. They kind of have the same win rate, but this guy has almost twice the sample size, you can say. Well, technically not really, because these are super close together, but you get it. Play what you want. Like, I think personally Flood is a bit better, that's just me. But as you can see, hand buffs are also doing fine, and Pipsy Pally is also quite strong, even in High Legend. It can do some nasty stuff, so plenty of Pally lists to choose from, as we often do. For the classes we haven't mentioned, we can check out Druid first. Ramp Druid, what the hell? Very small sample size, but it's a weird looking Dungar Druid list that looks quite interesting. We can also see some Dragon Druid lists, also known as Highlander from where I'm from. There's also another Dragon Ramp Druid. Yeah, nothing too new is happening here aside from that weird looking Dungar list. And there's also some Aulonius actions, some spell damage, some Tsunami action. Plenty of different Druid lists out there, but some are definitely better than others. With Hunter, Secret Hunter still seems to be the best bet, even though there are plenty of other variants right now, like Breakfast Hunter, like Spell Token Hunter, which I really liked. There's also this new weird looking Spell Token Hunter with this totem in here, plus the Cryopractor, which is kind of a cool thing. Like, you plop the Cryocraptor on something that can't attack. If you haven't attacked with it on that turn and it could actually attack, it actually straight up unfreezes the next turn, so that can be pretty good like that. A little bit of sneaky damage. Like, if you play snakes on 1, coin Cryo on 2 on the Stealth Snake, it makes it a 4/4 Stealth Snake. You don't attack with the snake beforehand. And starting your next turn, it actually unfreezes ready to attack like that, so that can be kind of cool. And we also can see Highlander Hunter still doing fine, and some other spell tokens as well. With mages, honestly, I could have included mage in this one. Big Spell Mage still seems to be doing quite fine. Here's a variant with Marin and whatnot. I also tried Orb Big Spell Mage. That was actually pretty fun. You can check out the last video with it. And as you can see, even Elemental Mage is doing quite fine right now. Small sample size, but it's basically a free deck, so give it a go if you like. And yeah, plenty of different choices here. Even Highlander Mage is up there, but not many actually do well with it. With Priest, Overkill Priest is an absolute menace of a deck to play against right now. I definitely feel like this deck might get nerfed soon, because it's very, very broken in High Legend, where people actually know how to play with it. Zarimi Priest is also pretty decent. But that's about it for Priest right about now. Rogues are actually starting to delve into some mech action again. The deck feels a little bit clunky and weird, but it is up there. Weapon Rogue is still playable. Another variant of Mech Rogue. And that's about it for the playable rogues. The others are far under 50, so there's that. And lastly, we have Warrior, where Odin Warrior is doing really well right now. You can, again, check out my guiding gameplay from a day ago. Dummy Warrior apparently is also doing a lot better than it used to, with 55%, 5,000 games, pretty good stuff. And Highlander Warrior is also up there again, but not as much actually. I think in Top Legend people do with this deck a lot better. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing after the latest patch. I will be doing an update in a few days from now, so hold tight. And if you enjoyed the content, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to get hired for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.